So the topic today is about seekers, and particularly new seekers who have recognized their path as spiritual aspirants, who are investigating their path, what that looks like, how to investigate a path, and the tools and directions that are necessary for that. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about seekers. So the first thing that the new seeker seeks or looks for or learns about is how to recognize their spiritual thirst and their own spiritual needs. So that meaning, first of all, they have to have the thirst. They have to have that inner drive, that relentless affection for searching, for seeking what it is that they need. So this is an inner drive that a seeker will have. And that drive will be coming from a place that is very sincere and is very pure, and will make the seeker look inside themselves, but also outside for reference points, for knowledge, for wisdom and guidance. And that's all to be able to look at what their spiritual needs are. So not their wants, that's a very different subject, but the spiritual needs. So what supports their evolution, what actually is going to quench their thirst, so to speak, and how they relate to being able to change, how they accept themselves, how they perceive what is in front of them. So these are the spiritual needs. So that is the first thing that the seeker learns about is, oh, I have a thirst, and what are my needs? How do I quench this thirst? So another thing that beginning seekers will notice is that they want to do it by themselves. So they want to seek, but they want to come to it on their own. And this is important for two reasons. One is that, yes, we need to come to our realizations on our own. The second part of that is that often we have a limited viewpoint or a limited perspective. So we need other inputs in order to come to our own realizations or our own expanded awareness about our lives, about life in general, about the mysteries of life, all of that. So that's the second thing, that the beginning seeker wants to do it on their own, and recognizing that that can be a stumbling block for many. And that's where the concept of ego, or the parts of ourself that hold ourself back, come into play. So that's the second thing that the new seeker needs to be aware of. So often this will mean going into uncomfortable territory, meeting those places of how we create our own obstacles in our life, how we create our dissonance with life, how we miss or don't see what it is that we need to see. So that's the second part. The third part is setting up the internal infrastructure to be able to actually have the awareness and the energy behind having the awareness. In yoga, they talk about prana and increasing prana or chi, that vital life force energy, because without that, vital life force energy, there's no energy for expanding awareness. It goes nowhere. So that's the second part, or the third part rather, is setting up and practicing how to cultivate, how to contain, how to maintain our internal infrastructures in order to support that spiritual thirst quenching, our evolution, all of our changes that are constant. Because without that, the constant changes that are necessary can easily become overwhelming. Depression can set in if we don't have that energy and containment of that energy. We don't have the awareness or the know-how or the practices behind that. And there are so many practices that support that in all nations, all backgrounds, all different ways that one can go about that. So that's the third thing, setting up and practicing avenues to support the internal infrastructure. So sometimes that can mean physical things as well, like tweaking the diet, tweaking our habits, eliminating certain things or introducing certain things. All of that can be exercise, it can be meditation, it can be, and usually actually is all of those things in some way, shape, or form. Dancing, for example, is a lovely way as well. So that's the third part. So the fourth part is new seekers will often seek outside to be able to reach inside. What the heck does that mean? Well, so new seekers will think that there is a separation between the internal world and the external world. And so when there is that separation going on as a concept of belief, then affecting the change inside that's required to further their awareness, to further their consciousness, further their understanding of the mysteries of life, it creates a separation. So there's no connection, there's no link. So we have to see that the internal world is also the external world. So things that happen on the outside, experiences, people that one meets, things that happen to you as a seeker are being broadcast to you in a way that is coming from what is going on inside. So we need to learn something from this person, or we need to see this information to eat better, or we need to learn humbleness from this situation. So that is one of the things that new seekers are learning as well, is that the inside is the outside and the outside is the inside. So usually the seekers, of course, because they have that thirst, they go outside, they go external, which is an important part because we need feedback from the external. You seek, a class, or you seek a teacher, or you seek information, and you look for what it is that you want to find and satisfy inside. And then at some point in the seeking path, the seeker will see that they can actually go inside and find what they're looking for from within. The realizations will naturally come once we have parts 1, 2, and 3 established. Then we start to understand how we can interpret the external as messages from the internal. So, and then we have the last part, so part 5, I guess we're at, is humbleness. So learning about being humble, and this is probably the biggest one that is challenged for a new seeker, someone who is deepening their seeking or deepening their mystic or spiritual life. So that means being aware of coming down from beliefs that have been holding you back. So someone gets humbled when they realize, for example, that how they perceived reality formerly is nothing like what they are perceiving now. So you get humbled by that, and you realize, wow, whatever I think is not important, really, in the grand scheme of things. There's just so much mystery and that we don't know. And so for new seekers and old seekers alike, these are actually applicable at all times, all of these 5 points. And the humbleness point is something that we come back to over and over and over again. And we come back to all of these things over and over and over again through different cycles, because we are on Earth. We have our yearly cycle, we have our monthly cycle of the moon, we have our seasonal cycles. And as we go through all of those cycles and we touch on all of these 5 points, we investigate a new layer and a new perspective on that as we gather our knowledge and our own wisdom and embody what it is that we are embodying and putting into practice. That is the biggest thing, because for new seekers, they learn something and they think they've got it, but they haven't actually practiced it yet. And it takes some time for some things to be put into place until we understand it in a different layer. And we go through the years and we go through the cycles and we embody those teachings in different ways and through different flavors. And new students will, or new seekers rather, will balk at these points. They don't know how to integrate them, or they may come across something that kind of triggers them when they're on the path, and they think, oh, that's not for me. I can't do that. I'm not going to go there. Or I'm not like that. That's not me. When, yeah, actually it is. And so that's a very challenging part for the new seeker, is coming up to and seeing all the parts of themselves that are in a process of change, in a process of evolution, in a process of acceptance. There are some things that we can't change, in fact, and part of that learning process is acceptance of how we actually are. And that's where the new seeker becomes an actual seeker, when they're able to establish themselves in those points and express that and drop away from who they thought they were, and are able to step more closer to who they really are, which of course is the whole point of the seeker.